So, a really warm welcome to everyone tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'm really excited to welcome our presenter tonight, James Nash. He's one of our exercise physiologists, and he's going to be talking about an important topic, which is what sort of exercises do we want to be doing for weight loss and for preserving strength. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but today is World Obesity Day, and really that's our passion is around helping people living with obesity to live their best life, to be fit and strong and as healthy as we can possibly be. Um, One of the things that we really focus on at Alivia is, we talk a lot around diet and, the options of using medications. But did you know that if you have strong muscle mass, then you are exponentially better off in terms of your long-term health and well-being? So if you've got low muscle mass, there's a 57% chance of dying prematurely. I can't believe that. It's just how do these little muscles of ours have so much power, but they affect things like our risk of dementia, our risk of osteoporosis and osteopenia. That makes a lot of sense. Even if you've got low muscle mass, then it can increase the risk of respiratory conditions and pre-diabetes. So there's so many health impacts to our muscles. So that's why we're not really interested in just you losing weight and being smaller version of yourself by losing muscle mass. We really want to focus on muscle as the organ of longevity, because this is about improving your health, not just getting into a smaller body. So I think that's a nice sort of pre-frame for James to talk about the role of exercise and how we can build strength. But the other thing I wanted to mention too, I'll just might ask you to mute if you're not on mute at the moment. The other thing is that if you are using medication, there is a bit of a risk of loss of muscle mass with that. So somewhere between 25 to 39%. So that's why we're also really conscious about ensuring that we've got adequate protein in our diet, and then we're doing things to build up our strength as well. So without further ado, James, I'm going to hand over to you. And then you can do a little screen share and take off from there. And
Thank you.
I'm just going to pick someone in our group tonight who might maybe put your hand up if you're willing to be a co-host tonight and keep a little bit of an eye on our admitting people into the waiting room. Anyone feel confident on Zoom? I can't see all of you at once, so you might want to. Nicole, are you saying yes, you can do that for me, Nicole Neal? Not sure how to do it? Oh, you can't hear. Yeah. Okay. No one else. All right. Is there anyone else who's confident to admit people into from the waiting room? Um, all right. So James, I know that it's a bit harder when you're screen sharing, but if you can just hit that little blue button for if there's any latecomers tonight as well.
Sure. Yeah, no worries. Thanks,
All
Kath.
right.
That's a great introduction. Thank you, everybody, for jumping on tonight. I'll be talking a little bit, yeah, as Kath said, about the role of exercise for weight management and a little bit about what happens to your body composition over time and sort of how we can improve that through strength training. So I'm an accredited exercise physiologist, and some of you may have heard of an exercise physiologist before, or you may have seen one in the past. But basically, what we do is we treat chronic conditions through exercise. So on the left there's a couple of, I guess, classifications of conditions that we commonly treat. There's a whole range of general conditions that people come and see an exercise physiologist for. And yeah, our main thing is to help you be the best version of yourself that you can be by managing your health. And usually that is through exercise. So we'll start off today by talking a little bit about what happens to I guess, your body composition over the course of your life. So firstly, if you look at that purple line down the bottom there, that's your fat-free mass or your muscle mass. And you can see it really dips off sort of in the second half of your life. And that muscle mass decline often occurs with aging, and it can lead to, I guess, lack of independence and problems down the line. So with your muscle mass, that's what we're going to talk about, how we can try and maintain that as you continue to get older and continue to, I guess, go through a bit of a weight loss journey, if that's what is your current goal at the moment. But preserving that muscle mass as much as possible is really a really key thing to try and do through exercise. So That's going to be one of the main focuses that we're going to talk about today. The other two lines focus a bit about fat mass. So you can see the fat mass continues to go up as you get older, and that's usually due to a slowdown in your metabolism and a few hormonal changes too, which end up with more fat mass towards the sort of later part of your life. And what we want to try and do through exercise and through, I guess, managing your weight is reducing that fat mass, not necessarily reducing your overall weight, because that can include your muscle too. So the fat mass is the main thing we want to try and reduce a little bit of and preserve as much muscle as we can as you get older, because that's what naturally will happen anyway. So first thing, a little bit about BMI. So you may have heard about BMI, or you might have been told what your BMI is, and you might be in a certain category with your BMI. Your BMI stands for your body mass index, and it takes into account your height and your weight. That is literally it. So it's not really the best measure that we use nowadays to sort of classify your current level of body composition, but it is how we can sort of classify obesity. So on that little green scale there, you can see that the healthy weight for BMI is in between that 18.5 to 24.9, and then it just keeps going up from there depending on how far above the recommended weight you are. Being obese does increase the risk of a lot of other comorbidities, and some of you may have these other comorbidities too. So with the exercise prescription that we're going to go through tonight, this is sort of like a general overview of exercise. But if you have any of these other conditions, there may be some other considerations and precautions we have to take with exercise that I won't discuss tonight. But if that is you and you have some of those conditions, then just know that you can do other exercise as well to help manage those conditions. But we're primarily going to be focusing on exercise for weight loss tonight, because that's the main reason why you're all here. So this is a little bit about, I guess, how we can, from an energy point of view, get the correct energy balance to actually assist with the weight management. So you can see the different scales there down the bottom. The one on the right-hand side is what we're aiming for. So that means that you're burning more calories than you're eating. Now, a common misconception with that scale is, oh, if I'm trying to burn more calories than I'm eating, I just won't eat as much and restrict my diet. That actually isn't the best approach, because restricting your diet actually makes you feel hungry. It can also make you feel tired, and it actually reduces your basal metabolic rate. And your basal metabolic rate is how many calories you're burning at rest. So that is one aspect of, I guess, how many calories you burn throughout the day. But also, in addition to that, there's the calories you burn from eating and digesting food, and also from doing exercise. So the combination of those things actually equals your total daily energy expenditure. And we want to try and make sure we're consuming a little bit less calories than what your total daily energy expenditure is. And that obviously depends person to person on, firstly, how much exercise you're doing and how much you're eating and what you're eating and all those sorts of things. But from a very basic level, we just want to make sure that the amount of calories that we're burning, like the amount of activity that we're doing, is greater than the amount of food that we're putting in our bodies, because that means it's going to actually result in a calorie deficit, which means the amount of fuel, I guess, that you're putting in your body won't get stored as fat. So that is, I guess, from a simple point of view, as I can put it, what we want to aim for initially is getting in that negative calorie deficit without restricting your diet too much. Now, this here sort of shows a little bit about what a trained versus an untrained person, their muscle looks like. So you can see the 40-year-old triathlete, who's obviously very fit, compared to the 70-year-old triathlete, pretty much the same. This is the muscle that we're looking at here. So the muscle actually looks very, very similar, 30 years difference. So that's because they've been active and physically fit and doing exercise for, I guess, those 30 years between the ages of 40 to 70. And it really shows that even though in that first graph I showed you how the muscle mass declines with age and usually the fat mass and the body mass goes up, it's not necessarily the case if you're always active and constantly using the muscles through exercise. So that really shows that the muscle mass can stay quite similar over the rest of your life if you're doing regular exercise. Compare it to the middle category there, or the middle image, which is of a 74-year-old sedentary man. And that just means somebody who's not that active. There's a lot less muscle in the actual tissue there, a lot more adipose tissue and fat. It's also much harder for that 74-year-old sedentary man to build up the muscle to get like that 70-year-old athlete. So what we want to try and do, no matter what age you're at, we want to try and do some training now to improve your muscle mass and improve your overall strength so that as you do get older, we can hopefully reduce that decline in muscle mass as much as possible. Because not only will that help with your weight management, but it'll also help with your overall health and the management of any other comorbidities that you may have, as well as maintaining your independence and just living a long and a healthy life. Now, this here is a really interesting study that really highlights the different interventions when trying to lose weight. So, the first one, diet only, you can see there's quite a lot of fat mass. So 5 kilos of fat lost and 1 kilo of lean muscle mass, which is quite good. But with diet only, and this can also be the case if you're just taking some medication like Ozempic or Mounjaro, the GLP-1 medications, your body just loses whatever it can in terms of the weight. So with that lean muscle mass, we don't want to lose any lean muscle mass, really. We want to try and preserve as much as possible. So by just dieting only, you can see there's lost 1 kilo of lean muscle mass. In the second category there, diet and cardio had a greater result, lost a little bit more fat and a little bit more lean muscle mass too, because cardio, while it is good for burning fat and for weight loss, it doesn't actually help us keep any muscle. So although the diet and cardio is good to lose more weight overall, we've ended up losing more lean muscle mass, which is what we want to try and avoid and what we'd want to try and do resistance training for. So that last, I guess, intervention group on the end there, doing diet and resistance training has the best results. So they've lost the most amount of fat and the least amount of lean muscle mass, which is exactly what we're looking for. Unfortunately, this study didn't look at diet, cardio, and resistance training. That is what we would expect the best, I guess, scenario to be in terms of the overall amount of fat lost and the least amount of lean muscle mass lost. But it does show the difference between if you're just on a diet and if you're just doing some cardio exercise compared to if you're actually doing some resistance training. So I think that resistance training is probably the most underrated mode of exercise that people should be doing for weight loss that maybe they don't think about because everybody thinks, oh, I just go for a walk or do some aerobic exercise to help with my weight, which is true. But unfortunately, losing that lean muscle mass is I guess the main thing we're trying to avoid here when we're trying to lose weight. We don't actually want to lose that. We want to just lose the fat mass. So this is something just to consider if you're currently doing a little bit of exercise but not resistance training, or if you're just on a diet or just taking weight loss medication, it can just show the differences in body composition over time. So it is really important to be doing resistance training to help preserve that muscle mass, which is I feel like is what I'm going to continue to say throughout this presentation. So also talking back about the BMI, I know I said that was one way of classifying your obesity, but it's not the best way because it does not give us the specifics. It does not tell us how much fat you have, how much muscle you have, how much bone mass or water percentage, any of those things. So using your BMI is not really the best way of monitoring your overall health. We want to use the body composition, which is a more detailed assessment. And you guys may have done that at Olivia. They have a body composition scanner there, which does give you a really good indication of what's changing over time, because ultimately your actual weight may stay similar, but your fat mass may be decreasing and your muscle mass may be increasing. So that change you won't see unless you actually have a body composition scan. And that is sort of one of the main things that we try and deter people from doing, is just getting on the scales all the time when they're trying to lose weight, because they might get on the scales and their weight's the same. It's always the same. And they're like, oh, I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. But really their muscle mass is actually improving and their fat mass is actually dropping. But the balance just makes your overall weight stay the same. So that's where the body composition scan is really, really useful. And it gives us a lot more information that you may not be able to get, or you cannot get, just from your overall weight and BMI. Another thing that you can use to measure, I guess, disease risk is waist circumference too. But overall strength and cardiorespiratory fitness are also really, really important indicators to predicting all-cause mortality. And having a high level of cardiorespiratory fitness, so that's like aerobic fitness, doing aerobic exercise, has been shown to be one of the most important indicators in reducing all-cause mortality, which is yeah, it's actually crazy how effective it is in helping you stay healthy for longer. So while it is also important for weight loss, it's also just as important for the rest of your health and your cardiac health. And if you've got high blood pressure or any other sort of conditions, doing regular exercise that combines aerobic exercise and strength training can really help to optimize your health, and yeah, put you in the best position to live a long and healthy life. One more thing about the importance of, I guess, not being too fixated on the number on the scales with the overall weight. This study shows how it is actually better to be fit and overweight than unfit and healthy. Now, that's a really and a healthy weight. Sorry, so that's a really sort of interesting. You wouldn't expect that to be the case because usually people think, "Oh, I'm overweight. I'm not healthy." But if you're exercising regularly and you're doing the recommended amount of exercise, which I'll touch on in a moment, you're actually only slightly more at risk of all cause mortality than somebody who's a normal weight and doing that same amount of exercise. Same if you're obese. So even if you're much heavier compared to a normal weight person and you're doing regular exercise, your risk of all cause mortality is not that much greater. If you compare that to just that normal weight and unfit, 2.2. So it's over double the risk of all cause mortality just from being unfit. Has nothing to do with their weight, it's just their regular exercise. So I know everybody may be trying to lose weight and actually bring their overall weight down, but there are some other things to be gained from doing regular exercise that may not be necessarily reducing the number on the scales. It can be just improving your overall fitness and your overall strength and just your overall health, because ultimately that's what we want to do as well in life. If you are regularly exercising and reducing your risk of developing other comorbidities and other diseases, that's going to be a great step into, I guess, optimizing your life. So there are a few other things to look for beyond just the number on the scales, is what I'm getting at from this slide. So to the exercise, these are the Australian Physical Activity Guidelines. Now, has anyone heard of the Physical Activity Guidelines before, or been told about them before, or know anything about them? Well, they're pretty much the same for all adults. So there's four categories there. The first one being doing anything is better than nothing. So that means if you're doing nothing at the moment, starting by going out for even just a 5-10 minute walk is going to be good and better for you than doing nothing and sitting at home. So that's the first guideline. To just do anything is better than doing nothing. The second one is to be active on most, preferably every day. So for people who are trying to lose weight, that is definitely what we want to try and do, be as active as possible. It can be tricky with busy schedules and work and motivation and energy levels and things like that to be active on most, preferably every day, but that's what we're trying to strive towards. The next one is about aerobic exercise. So we want to do 2.5 hours of moderate intensity aerobic exercise per week, which does sound like quite a lot if you're not doing any exercise at the moment, or even if you are. 2.5 hours equates to about 30 minutes a day for about 5 days. So it can be quite a lot, but that is really what we want to try and do. That's mainly the exercise that we try and do on most, preferably every day, that aerobic exercise. So that's things like walking, swimming, riding a bike. They're the sort of the main types of aerobic exercise. But the key part of that is the moderate intensity part. So in terms of the intensity, moderate intensity means where you're going for a walk, but you're a little bit out of breath. You can still talk if you're chatting to somebody next to you, but you probably couldn't sing. So that intensity is really important because lots of people go walking all the time, but they are walking at a very light intensity. So they're just strolling along and there's not actually that much increase in heart rate or in their breathing, which doesn't actually, it's not as beneficial for weight loss or for just improving your cardiac health. It is good still getting some steps in, but it's not the most beneficial mode or the most beneficial intensity of that aerobic exercise. So I'll touch on that in a moment, but that moderate intensity aerobic exercise is really what we want to try and do most days, equating to about 2.5 hours over the week. And the last point there is 2 strength training sessions each week. So strength training is what we'll discuss in a moment, and that is arguably the most important part of the exercise guidelines that I'm sort of discussing with you tonight, because that is often the part that's neglected and sort of not valued as much, but it really is one of the most important things that you need to be doing to optimize your, I guess, your overall body composition, and it'll give you the greatest chance to lose that fat mass that we're talking about. So progressive resistance training, this is the following on from that last slide. So the progressive part of that title just means that the weights go up. So with resistance training, some people like to do exercises at home, which is fine. Home exercise is still valuable in some situations, but for it to be progressive, it's really hard to progress home exercises, because usually you're just using your body weight, or you're using like elastic bands, or really light weights. So progressive resistance training is usually completed in like a gym setting, or using machine weights, or free weights. So as you can see on the left there are heaps of benefits of doing progressive resistance training. But the number one and the most important benefit, which is what we want everybody to be trying to do, especially those who are trying to lose weight, is to increase your muscle mass. So the more muscle mass that we have, it actually helps with your metabolism, and there's more spots for glucose to go from your blood into your muscle. It helps improve your bone density as well. Obviously improves your strength, so you can be more independent and do the things that you want to be able to do. Also helps to reduce visceral fat. Now, this is interesting because people don't really realize that resistance training can help reduce fat too. It's not just about burning muscle; it can also burn fat as well. So this is something we really want to definitely be doing twice per week for weight management. You can see the photo on the right there. That person's doing a chest press exercise, which is an example of a compound movement. So what a compound movement is, it's just using big muscle groups, and it's quite a large amount of muscle that's being worked. So for that chest press exercise, they're using the muscles on the front of their chest, also in the arms. So it's quite a big movement. Usually if you do machine, or if you go to a gym, or if you've been to a gym in the past, there are lots and lots of different options for different exercises to do. The best exercises to do, the ones that are going to be the most beneficial for you to help optimize your muscle mass and improve your body composition, is doing those compound movements. So that's things like, the chest press, like doing a leg press. There are heaps of other machines that sort of do more accessory movements, like, for example, like bicep curls, or like calf raises, which are still good to improve your strength of those particular muscles, but they're not as, I guess, bang for buck as these compound movements. So they're really what we want to try and work towards, is those big muscle groups, and training them through resistance training, and gradually increasing the weight over time, so that we can actually increase our strength. Because this is the other thing that some people may not realize with strength training, but to actually improve your muscle mass and your strength, you need to work the muscle almost to fatigue. So the muscle needs to be realize, oh, this is really hard, so that next time when you do the exercise, the muscle actually recruits more muscle fibers to do the exercise. So over time, that has a really good accumulative effect of increasing your muscle mass. Unfortunately, if you do the resistance training and you do like heaps and heaps and heaps of reps, and the weight's quite light, it's not going to have the same effect. So even though resistance training is really, really beneficial, it has to be done to a high intensity, and that is really going to help improve your muscle mass, and get all of those benefits if you are doing that to the correct intensity. In addition, the aerobic training. So that aerobic training is, the walking, the riding the bike, the swimming. That is really the most common form of exercise that you can do for aerobic benefits, and that is what we want to do at least 150 minutes, which is 2.5 hours, at least 150 minutes of it per week. So you can do more. That guideline there says 150 to 400 minutes. 400 is a lot, but if you want to be more and more active, doing more aerobic exercise will help with, I guess, burning more fats, provided it's at the correct intensity. And that's what I discussed before, of doing that sort of moderate intensity where you can't really sing, but you can still talk. You can do more so like on the treadmill, or on a bike or something. You can do what's called like interval training, where you do like a shorter burst at a higher intensity and then have a bit of a recovery and then a higher intensity and then a bit of a recovery, that's also really beneficial to improve your, I guess, your cardiovascular fitness and your cardio health. And then also that higher intensity really helps to burn more fat too. So if you can, that would be great to work at a bit of a higher intensity. But if not, just doing the moderate intensity walking is a great place to start. So you can see all the benefits of aerobic exercise there. And I did touch on earlier about the importance of, I guess, cardiorespiratory fitness as you continue to get older. So if you have a good level of fitness when you're able to exercise, as you get older, that will actually help you with your overall health, being able to stay independent, and reduce your risk of developing other comorbidities. So it is really important to do this regular cardio exercise, and it'll really help you with, improving that cardio health, but also improving your insulin sensitivity and helping the glucose get cleared from your blood and into your muscles. So the combination of the aerobic training and the resistance training is what we want to strive towards. And that will actually mean that you're meeting the physical activity guidelines that I mentioned at the start. But the main thing about the aerobic exercise is to try and do something that you enjoy. So if you have been, you were a keen swimmer back in the day and now you want to get back in the pool, that might be a good starting point rather than doing something that you don't really like and sort of forcing yourself to do it, because the problem with that is it may not last beyond a certain length of time, which is often the case when you're trying to lose weight. You sort of try something and it works for a bit, but then you might stop it and then the weight might come back on and it sort of just goes up and down in ebbs and flows. What we want to try and do through this sort of exercise plan and this exercise regime is find something that is going to be sustainable. So it doesn't matter if it is just a little bit less than the recommended amount at the moment, but I would prefer everybody to sort of start gradually and build up to doing the 150 minutes per week, as long as they are enjoying it and they feel like it's a sustainable part of their ongoing routine. Like if it's something that you can't see yourself doing once, once school goes back and the kids are busy, or, anything, it needs to be a sustainable activity that you can do for a long period of time, because that's really what's going to ultimately lead to the best outcomes for your weight management. And here are just some other benefits of long-term strength training. So the actual positive behavior change is just where you're in the habit of doing regular exercise. So that really helps to, I guess, get in the habit of exercising regularly and looking after your health. And it does improve your quality of life, because lots of people who do regular exercise and improve their muscle mass and their muscle strength are able to do the things they want to do. They're still able to play golf, and they're still able to play with the kids or the grandkids, and they're still able to, pick their suitcase up when they go traveling. They can do all the things that they were able to do when they were young, which is really, really important. And especially depending on what your goals are, that is what we want to try and keep you doing through exercise. And we sort of touched on the other things before with reducing the amount of fat mass in your body and improving the lean muscle mass. That's another really important benefit of strength training that has a really long-term effect if you do it consistently for a long period of time. So at Keyser, we, as exercise physiologists, we see lots of people with the goal of losing weight. So in the initial assessment, when you come in to see an exercise physiologist like myself, we do have an hour consultation, and we do like a big discussion about your medical history and your goals and things like that. Then we do objective data testing. So like Olivia, we have a body composition scanner as well. And we can do various assessments of levels of strength to see where you're at the moment. And that really helps us to plan, I guess, your exercise plan and make sure it's tailored to you. So at Keyser, we've got different levels of training. It can be independent and it can be a bit more supervised if you want a bit more supervision. But that sort of depends on your preference and if you've done much strength training before and if you feel confident doing the training before, because lots of people might be a bit worried about doing strength training if they haven't done any strength training before, because Keyser is a little bit different to a normal gym, and I'll explain that in a moment how it actually operates. But doing strength training in a supervised setting is really, really helpful to, I guess, promote the benefits I discussed before and improve your overall health. We do have group-led sessions, like group classes run by the exercise physiologists, which focus on a bit more cardio exercise and a bit of balance and a bit of bone loading exercise, a few other things depending on what your goals are. But we have various other programs as well that we can go through. But there's lots and lots of different data that we can use to sort of help guide your journey. But the main thing is just providing advice and structured exercise, I guess, advice about what you should be doing to help achieve your goals. So, in terms of what keys are actually, oh, this is sort of this picture sort of shows what keys are actually looks like. So, compared to a normal gym, who you might have been to a normal gym before, lots of people who come to Keezer are not very confident training in a gym setting because the gym they've been to before when they were younger was quite intimidating. There was lots of loud music, lots of mirrors, and lots of bodybuilders walking around with hardly any clothes on. That's not what it's like at Keezer. We have no distractions. There's no music and there's no mirrors. It's just like white walls, plain, very quiet, very peaceful. All of the machines are very, very targeted, very specific. So they're set up correctly for you at the start when you come in. So you know every time you're doing them that you're doing them correctly. And we train on each exercise once. So compared to, I guess, when you go to a normal gym, you might have done 3 lots of 10 reps, or you'll usually do a couple of sets of each exercise, which is what most people tend to do at the gym. At Keezer, we don't. We just do one set because that has been shown to get the same benefits as doing 3 sets of however many reps at the gym in less time. So we do one set of between 90 to 120 seconds on the machines. And by the end, we want you to be working pretty hard so that you're almost at that fatigue point, which is what I was talking about earlier, in that's what we want to get to so we can actually improve your muscle mass. And if you get to the 2 minutes and still not too hard, that's where we put the weight up. And that's how you know if you're training independently when to adjust the weights and do it on yourself. Do it yourself. So we also do what's called a 4-2-4-2 cadence. And that just means when we do in the exercise, so that leg press, for example, that guy, we're pushing his legs out over 4 seconds, holding for 2 seconds when his legs are straight, and then 4 seconds as he comes back in, and then holding for 2 seconds just before the weights touch, and then going out again. And the reason we do that is because it's a much safer way of training. At the gym, you may have seen people like just throwing the weights around and doing really fast repetitions. We don't use that. We want to take that momentum out of the exercise and just use the muscles that we're trying to target. And by doing the slow tempo, we can actually target the muscle at each part of the movement because the machines are just slightly differently built to a normal gym machine. The muscles work every part of the movement. So it's a much safer and a much better way of training. And I guess the beauty of the whole thing is that it usually takes you around 30 minutes to do your program, which is about 10 machines, and you come in twice a week, and that's all you have to do. So overall, that's about an hour each week, and that will really help with achieving the guidelines and working towards those 2 resistance training sessions each week. And under the guidance of an exercise physiologist like myself and the other team members that we have at Keezer, you can be sure that you're actually doing the right thing to sort of improve your muscle mass gradually, and also targeting the specific big muscle groups that I mentioned before, like those big compound movements of like the leg press and the chest press, and things like that. Down the bottom there are just a couple of other random machines that we have at Keezer, which can target different muscles. Like the one on the left there is the legs going out to the side and working on the glute muscles, which surround the hips. And then there's like a wrist one there as well. So there's lots and lots of different different machines for different muscle groups. So if you have a muscle or part of the body that you want to work on, we have a machine for it pretty much. So that's really what comes down to when you come and start, or when people do begin their journey at Keezer, we have a chat about their goals and what areas they want to work on. And then their program is designed and tailored just for them so that they are, I guess, doing the exercises that they want to be doing based on what they want to achieve. So for weight loss, it would be, those big compound movements, and a bit of core exercises as well. Really would be give you the best chance of, I guess, reducing your overall fat mass and improving your muscle mass. So Keezer Burwood is just located on Burwood Highway. It's 315 Burwood Highway. It's opposite the Nunawading Basketball Centre where the Quest Hotel is. It's on the corner of Burwood Highway and Marnie's Road. If you want to contact me, that's my email address there, and also the phone number for Keezer. We actually have a open day at Keezer Burwood East next Saturday, the 14th. If you would like to come down and like have a look at what I guess the facilities are and have a chat to somebody and maybe go on a bit of a tour, see some of the group classes in action or see some people training on the machines, that would be a great opportunity to come down and I guess see what's happening there. Alternatively, yeah, you can just come down whenever and we can do the same thing. But on Saturday, next Saturday, there'll be lots of people, lots of staff there sort of helping out. So that's where we are located. And if anybody does want to get started with doing some targeted strength training to improve your overall body composition, we do offer a half price initial assessment with an exercise physiologist like myself. We have a few others there as well. And that is where we'll go through that, I guess, that initial assessment where we discuss your goals and your medical history and your medications and what exercise you're doing at the moment. And then we can, after we do a few assessments and see where you're at the moment, we can help you together. We decide what the best plan is for you and how we're going to work towards achieving your goals. So whether that be training at Keezer and doing the resistance training there, or if you want to train at a different gym, that's absolutely fine too. We can give guidance about what to actually do. And then you can just come back and we can check your progress every couple of months. So that's a half price offer for all of you who are here in the webinar tonight. If you'd like to do that through, I can organise that with you at the end, or you can always email me or call the clinic on the previous slide. And I'll leave these details with Kath so that you can also access them after tonight's webinar if you decide you want to get more information. So to summarize the main things that we have discussed tonight, the first thing was the energy balance. We want more energy out than the energy that we're putting in. So that means just doing more exercise, aerobic exercise and resistance exercise. The combination of those is the main mode of exercise I want everybody to be doing for weight management. So I touched on the guidelines a couple of times. 2.5 hours of moderate intensity aerobic exercise and 2 resistance training sessions each week is what we want to aim for. A little bit more aerobic exercise is fine, but you actually don't need to do any more resistance training than that. 2 a week is fine. There actually won't be too much more benefit in doing 3 or 4 sessions a week. But the aerobic exercise is something you can try and do every single day. But I do stress that it needs to be regular and consistent. It would be better to do, in terms of the aerobic exercise, it would be better to do a bit each day than going on 1 2-hour walk on the weekend. So doing little small chunks regularly and consistently and for a long period of time is what's really going to give you the best chance of optimizing your body composition through exercise. That last point there is really important. It needs to be enjoyable and it needs to be sustainable, because we want you to be doing this exercise hopefully for the rest of your life to help manage your overall health. But if not, do it for a long period of time so that you can actually see the benefits of it and hopefully keep your weight management under control and experience those increases in muscle mass and increase all the benefits of doing regular resistance training and aerobic exercise that I've touched on. But doing it for a long period of time will actually really help to improve your muscle mass and your body composition throughout a long period of time. But it needs to be enjoyable. Otherwise, it's unlikely that you'll stick with it. So if you're not doing anything at the moment, I urge you to start doing some sort of exercise, whether that be just a short walk around the block or just a little bit of exercise, but gradually building towards those guidelines of 2.5 hours of aerobic exercise and 2 resistance training sessions each week. Thank you very much for listening to me talk tonight.